Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and welcome to the Long Dark, a world of beauty where the days are cold and the nights are deadly. Here, in my cabin, I'm trying to survive an apocalyptic world. Unfortunately enough, I've been granted the resources here in this very cabin. A significant amount of resources more than you'd normally start with within this game. But nonetheless, the world outside is a threat, and my survival within this cabin will be limited to just a day or two, without me travelling out to find more resources. For those of you that don't know, The Long Dark is a game in development by Hinterland Studio. It began live quite a few years back on Kickstarter, and it was one of the few games back then that I was very impressed with, and so backed it. I made a video on this back in the early days of this channel, but it's time to revisit it. What have we here? As I said earlier, it's an extremely beautiful world, and you know me, when it comes to exploration, I really do have an itch for it. So, kitting up, I was getting prepared to head on out into the wild world out there. Now, this is set deep in a Canadian-like wilderness, so it's very cold territory, and that's one of the things you need to keep an eye on. You need to make sure you keep warm at all times, and to be perfectly honest, you can't spend too long outside. Now, at the moment, this is a single-player sandbox game, but later on there will be also a story mode coming, featuring the voices of Jennifer Howell and Mark Meir, the voices of Commander Shepard from Mass Effect. So, with only a few hours of daylight left, let's head on outside to take a look at the world out here. At the moment, I've essentially got nothing aside from a couple of snack bars and a little bit of water and a couple of cans of soda. I've also got no tools or utilities of any type. Fortunately, I have got a shelter in the form of the cabin back there, but most often with the game, you don't actually start off with that. Now, there are 3 difficulty modes to this game, and I'm right at the very start easy mode, basically the exploration mode that lets you explore the wilderness without too much concern. The wilderness itself can be a bit of a challenge, but you won't get attacked by the wildlife unless I actually provoke it. But that's just for the initial part of the playthrough here, and I will soon be going on to some more difficult stages. Going out into the wild, especially areas that are remote, can be quite a challenging experience, to say the least. It's an experience that can be immensely enriching, but it's also an experience that can be very deadly and could be the last thing you ever do. And The Long Dark is probably one of the only games out there that actually manages to successfully mirror a little bit of what it's like to be out there in the wilderness. Generally speaking, the biggest threat to your survival is 1, your own hunger and thirst, and 2, the environment itself. It's all too easy to end up like that guy that we're just looking at a moment ago there. Now, you may have noticed that to start with here, you don't have any type of compass, you don't even have any type of map. And that makes it extremely easy to get lost out here. Finding your way back to your shelter can be a bit of a challenge in itself, so you need to develop a bit of an eye for local landmarks. Certain trees, certain rock formations, the way branches are laying across the ground, things like that will help you get your way back and help you explore the environment here. Stopping off momentarily to admire the beautiful view there, I soon moved back towards the shelter, knowing that I only had a very little bit of daylight left. Nighttime out in these places can be very difficult. If you've ever been a long way from any city, a long way from any civilizations, you'll know just how dark nighttime can truly be. And when those dark hours do come, and there's complete cloud cover with no stars and no moonlight, it makes little difference as to whether you've got your eyes open or shut, and this is another thing that The Long Dark manages to successfully mirror. In addition, of course, to the beautiful night skies there, it's quite curious to imagine flying among those stars. Something we can of course do with another game out there. Now, there's also other problems out here. You can of course have injuries. I've just sprained my foot there. An injury that will heal itself so long as I afford myself the opportunity to rest. If I don't rest, it will of course develop into something a bit more worse, and if you get caught out in the cold too long, you could well develop hypothermia. Something I'm very keen to avoid even this early on. The sight of your home, of course, is very welcoming. There it stands as a testament of warmth and a shelter away from the hostility of the environment out here. But of course, even indoors at night can present its own problems. The light of the windows outside had misled me to think that it may be lit up in here, but of course that is just an artifact of the way the game currently models these buildings. Inside it's completely pitch black, and I was stumbling around for quite a while until I eventually thought to light a match. Now, the matches won't last that long, but there is a stove here, and if I get the fire in this going, I will have some warmth and some light. But unfortunately, there's no guarantee that you'll be able to successfully start the fire. I could use an accelerant to begin it, and that would pretty much give me an 100% chance of starting the fire, but I only have one of those, and I'd rather reserve it for times when I'm in more dire need of a fire. So the fires here provide warmth, they allow you to cook, and you can also take a branch out of here to create a torch. I like the way the game actually models this. Starting fires on your own can be quite difficult, even in a stove, even in an open fireplace. Once you get the hang of it, there is a couple of techniques you can use and things actually start to work out okay. But until then, it's a bit of a skill set, and the game does mirror that quite well, like I say. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the fire started, but I knew, even fumbling around in the dark, I could find the little lamp here, so I lit that up, just so I could have a little bit of a look around the cabin here, just to find a bit of food before heading in for bed and getting some rest. As I mentioned earlier, you don't normally get to start in a cabin like this. I was actually quite fortunate where the game placed me at the beginning of this save. It's pretty much random where it places you, so sometimes you get lucky, but more often than not, you actually begin out in the wilderness with little to nothing to actually get going with. Now, at some point, I'm going to have to find myself some tools and some hunting equipment so I can go out and get myself a bit of a more permanent supply of food. Being surrounded by snow, of course, finding water generally isn't too much of a problem. You can melt it, but you do have to boil it to try and purify it a little bit. At any rate, I decided that I'd eat and drink in the morning and would head in for bed now and try and keep warm and get a little bit rested. The morning hours would afford me the opportunity to head on out and see what resources I could locate. Up during the very early hours of the morning, I once again went back outside. Now this time it was actually snowing. Not too bad, the temperature wasn't too low, but you do sometimes have to be very cautious because this type of snow can be a precursor to a storm. Getting caught out in a blizzard is actually one of the last things you want to do. With temperatures falling well below minus 40 degrees Celsius, you won't stand much of a chance of surviving out here for very long at all, and that is why you can see me constantly checking the temperature here just to keep an eye on what's going on. And unfortunately, it was indeed the start of a blizzard. In addition to the bitter temperatures, it does of course extremely reduce your visibility. Without a compass, without a map, it can be almost impossible to actually find your way back again. In fact, you soon lose any sense of direction at all. And this is where having developed skills of paying attention to the fall and lay of the land become absolutely essential. Unfortunately for me, I was stuck out here a long way from home without any resources, and so the question in the back of my mind was whether or not I would ever find my way back. And we'll find out that in the next video of The Long Dark. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time. A few kilometres from the meeting encampment was a massive crater filled with a great mountain range. It turned out to be a crater that is actually filled with mist as well, so we decided it would be a lovely place to explore.